morning till 6 at night, practically 6 days a week. And then we come back and Sunday, cook the feast, clean the temple. It was a constant engagement in devotional service. So, again, we knew that Prabhupada was sick, but there was no way in our mind we thought that he would pass away. It just didn't register. We thought he would be there always, even though he was physically old, 82, 81 years old, physically. And he knew that he could pass at any time. He gave us that insight / warning that any time he can leave this world. So he was trying to make us strong. So when we heard that news, myself, I was in the back of a Sankirtan band, and the devotee Veda Guyadas, I remember exactly the devotee, Veda Guyadas, who became also a temple president in Atlanta. And he turned and told us Srila Prabhupada has passed. And full day Sankirtan book distribution, probably 50, 60, 100 books being distributed, so much Lakshmi collected. And then when we heard that news, it was like all the air was sucked out of our lives, just taken out. So, coming back to the temple, our temple president at that time was Gopinaranjana Das, and he assembled all the devotees in the temple room. We sat there, just like you're all sitting here looking this way. That's how we did it. We just sat there. I don't know how long it was. It's like eternity. We didn't know what to think and how to feel. Most of us, like myself, I had not met in terms of talking to Srila Prabhupada, but I met him physically, saw him in 1974. When I got initiated at the Chicago Rath Yatra, I saw him at the airport. Actually, there's a little movie of Prabhupada in Chicago, and I'm walking directly behind him. And someone had mentioned, you don't look at the face of your spiritual master, look at his feet. So when you see me, anytime you see me near Prabhupada, I'm looking at his feet, because that's what I was told to do. Be respectful to your spiritual master. Familiarity breeds contempt if you're not careful. So I was very much focused on Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. So then, of course, I got initiation, but I also was able to guard his door in Chicago. I was like the giant Vijay for Srila Prabhupada, guarding his door. I remember Srila Prabhupada, the sannyasi, Sudama Maharaj, Vishnu Vidar remembers Sudama Maharaj. He told me, he said, okay, if Prabhupada calls me, you come and get me immediately. So I'm standing there in the old Chicago temple. There's a big swimming pool, because it was a YMCA or something like that. So it's a big swimming pool, no water. It's all the junk that devotees brought when they moved in the temple. They threw it in the swimming pool. And Prabhupada was just to the right of that swimming pool in his room. Nice room. And I remember Prabhupada came out of his room, and he went to the sink, and they just spit him. He had to spit something in the sink and wash his mouth. I remember that. And then he came back and he said, Sudam. That was my signal. I ran to get Sudam. Sudam Maharaj, Prabhupada's calling you. And what Prabhupada called him for was prasadam. It was like 4 o'clock or so, so they made this huge plate of prasadam for Prabhupada, all fruits, sweets, and I had my eyes on it. Thinking, I'm going to get this. I'm just a young boy, I don't know. When that plate was taken out of his room, he came back by me, it looked like nothing had been taken. Because Prabhupada was so precise, he would take a little prasad and he would be very happy, and then the rest of the devotees would take it. So I first saw him that time. And then the next time was? No, Atlanta in 1975. February 28th, March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So he came to the Atlanta temple, and as Vishnu explained earlier, I was singing the song, Parama Varuna, Pavum Buddhana, Nitaya Temple. So Srila Prabhupada sang that song. For us in Atlanta, that was the first time we'd ever heard it. We just never heard that song sang the way Prabhupada sang it. He sang it with a different beat. We always played ting, 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 like that. But he went ting, 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 double, like a 2 beat. And we were mystified. Wow, how to follow that? So Prabhupada sang, played his kartal, actually sang without anything. He just sang. And then he asked, did you make a recording? And the devotee said, yes, Prabhupada, play it back. So when he played it back, actually some devotees tried to play with Prabhupada. They couldn't follow him. So he said, you got Mridanga? Yes, Prabhupada, give it to him. So they gave him the Atlanta Mridanga, which was beaten up like anything. We had played it so hard, it was practically falling apart. And Prabhupada tried his little beat, ding, 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 then he stopped. Have you got a better drum? So the devotee had a beautiful drum wrapped in red cloth, and he gave it to Prabhupada. So he played the Vedanta to his own recording, and there's a recording floating in the air somewhere, Prabhupada playing Vedanta and doing that Bhakti Maharaj. So that was the second time. Third time was Philadelphia. Wow. Same year, 1975. Of course, Vishnu Gadal and myself both were here to greet Srila Prabhupada when he came. Rath Yatra. It was Rath Yatra, July. And then the next time I saw him was in Mayapur in 1976. And I was very fortunate then because in those days, the festival in India was almost like a month. So every day, we heard Prabhupada give lecture in Mayapur. Every day, singing Jaya Radhamadava. Every day giving class. Every day you could see him. So you're thinking, oh, Prabhupada will always be here. So then I saw him there, and then we went from there to Delhi. So I was very fortunate in Delhi to go on the stage with Prabhupada, put a garland on Prabhupada, sit on the stage for the whole time, because my temple president saw it in my eyes. I was hankering to do it. So he said, okay, you go ahead. So I put the garland and sat down next to Prabhupada for the whole lecture. So that was Delhi. And then that night, it's very special for me, because as Prabhupada was exiting the stage, no one was paying attention, that he had difficulty getting down except me. Because I'm always looking for that chance to serve. That's the secret of Krishna consciousness, service. So I'm looking, and I saw no one's looking. So I grabbed Prabhupada's arm and helped him down the stairs. After that, we went to Modi Nagar. Did anyone know? Am I saying it correctly? Modi Nagar or Modi Nagar? How do you say Modi Nagar? Modi Nagar. It's just outside of Delhi, right? So we had a festival in Modi Nagar. And then from there, Aligarh. Aligarh is predominantly Muslim, I believe, Aligarh. So that night, I thanked Prabhupada for the whole lecture. I'm always looking for service. And if you're looking for service, Krishna arranges service. Sometimes you get special service, like that special service of serving Prabhupada. Then after that, Vrindavan. And we stayed there for 10 days or so, maybe 2 weeks in Vrindavan. So every day, seeing Prabhupada. And that's when I heard him give a lecture. It might have been an initiation, I don't remember exactly when he said about how important it is to see Krishna not only on the altar, but also see him in the temple on the floor. Therefore, you should take as much care for the floor as you do the altar. We were like, wow. Because it's not different from Krishna. This temple is not different from Krishna. So we should give it all of our love and attention. So then I'm thinking, Prabhupada, you know, the next year, as Vishnu explained this morning, when Prabhupada was in his last days, he wanted all of his disciples from all over the world to come and be with him because he was trying to make us strong. And being in his presence made you feel empowered. You felt like you could do things that you couldn't normally do. I guarantee if you talk to any of his disciples, they'll say the same thing. The Spirit of Srila Prabhupada lifted us so much that we could do things we would not normally do, not trained to do, had no idea how to do. Book distribution? What do we know about selling? Nothing. And we had to learn how to do all that for Srila Prabhupada. And it became so powerful that all over the world, the Hare Krishnas were known for this book distribution and Harinam Sankirtan. So powerful. But just by Srila Prabhupada's transcendental presence, we were able to do that. So we're just thinking Srila Prabhupada will be there for us, to guide us. But then all of a sudden, we're hearing that he's very, very sick. He's getting ready to leave this world, and we didn't know what to do. We were just completely bewildered what to do. So that night, when we heard that Prabhupada had left, again, as I said, we were sitting in the room. We didn't know which way to turn, what to do. The temple president, Gopal had a little more interaction with Srila Prabhupada, but for most of us, we had never really spoken with him, and we were just beginning to develop the faith and the love that you need to have at the lotus feet of the spiritual master. So he was almost in tears, and we were just bewildered. His emotions were different from ours, because he had closer understanding of Srila Prabhupada. In fact, Gopal had directed a play when Srila Prabhupada came to Atlanta, the Chan Kazi play, the one that Vishnugadadi here in Philly. And it was done so perfectly that Srila Prabhupada commented to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, there should be more plays on this standard. He was so pleased with what Govardhan had done. So he had that kind of a closer relationship with Prabhupada, and it showed in his emotions. For me, over the years, it's dawned upon me what I've lost in terms of the physical presence of Srila Prabhupada. The real thing is called Vani. Vani means the instructions of the spiritual master. The Vabu is like the form of the spiritual master, and it will not stay there forever, the physical form. Will I see you in your finery, Srila Prabhupada? How will he look? If I'm fortunate to see him again, I don't know. Will he look the way he did when he left? I don't know. He will be in his finery, in his spiritual pure. This form is also spiritual, but he has an eternal form in service to Krishna. Will I recognize you in that form? Yes, by the grace of the Guru. If you're dedicated to your spiritual master, if I'm dedicated to Srila Prabhupada and I give my life to serve him, if I'm fortunate when I leave this body to join him, however he's manifested, I will recognize him by his grace. He will arrange it. We have to have that kind of confidence. And I'm speaking specifically about confidence in Srila Prabhupada. Many of you have other spiritual masters who are disciples of Srila Prabhupada, but I'm not speaking about that right now. I'm speaking specifically about Srila Prabhupada. Even if you're initiated by one of ISKCON's authorized spiritual masters, you have a spiritual fiduciary responsibility to develop a deep relationship with Srila Prabhupada. You would not have the option of ISKCON gurus without Prabhupada. He's the one that made them. Made them, in a sense, train them as devotees, that now they can take the responsibility of training other devotees. So it's all because of Srila Prabhupada. As we were discussing the other night, in reference to Govardhan Puja, how the counter devotees, men and women, when Krishna lifted the Govardhan hill with his left hand little finger, and he lifted it up, people didn't rush under that hill. They didn't like, oh wow, look at Krishna, he's got the hill, let's go under there. They went, oh wow, look at that little Krishna. How can he do this? They had doubts. They actually had doubts. And Krishna encouraged them, come under the hill, I will protect you. As he says in Bhagavad Gita, I will protect you. My devotee will never be vanquished, as he also mentioned in 1866 about Sarvadhamma. Just surrender unto me. I will protect you. I will protect you from all your sinful reactions and everything. But they were hesitant, but they were also advanced devotees. So finally, they surrendered and went under the hill. And as I mentioned, if you look in the Active Devotion, it's describing how when Krishna was holding up the hill, everything's fine. And they stayed there for 7 days. And Indra brought all the clouds and the rain and the hill and all the stuff was coming, and Krishna was holding the hill for 7 days. So, I forget which day exactly, but Krishna, when he saw the gopis, his hands started to shake in ecstasy. Of course, the hill shook. And then the cowherd men, not having the strongest faith at that point, they put their sticks up. Because he's shaken, the hill's going to fall. We have to do something to, enhance the protection that Krishna says he's giving us. You don't have to do anything to enhance the protection. Krishna can do it all. There's nothing we have to do except chant the holy name, follow the reverence principles, follow Srila Prabhupada, and we'll be taken care of. So finally, as one young devotee said the other night, the sticks broke. So they had to just surrender to Krishna. They had to totally surrender to Krishna. They had nothing. That's okay. We'll give you time. No problem. So we have to really have that faith. And that's what Srila Prabhupada did for us. But we were also, as I explained, hesitant to give full surrender, especially in the beginning. As neophyte devotees, all of us come in the same way. We all come as neophytes, inexperienced devotees, with very small faith. We come with something. Like for me, the faith was, I want that book, Easy Journey to Other Planets. That was the initial faith. That desire to have that book brought me to the temple. That was my initial faith. And that faith was tested, and I mentioned many times. Because I worked on 14th Street in Atlanta, the temple was on 13th Street in Atlanta. So I had one couple of blocks I could go anytime. But as I approached the temple, my faith was shaken. The smell of the incense, the sound of the cartel, I don't know what it was, but I had no experience of any of that. So I was very hesitant. But I wanted that book. Just the title, I didn't even know really what's in the book. But I was into UFOs and extraterrestrials. I said, I want that book. I saw it advertised in the back of the magazine at my job, of all places. You know, most places have a break room. You know, you sit and take your lunch and all that. So there was a break room. And on the 5th floor of this 30-something floor tower building, there sat a Back to God magazine that devotees were distributing on the corner. Temple's on 13th Street, I worked on 14th Street. Devotees stood on the corner of 13th and 14th and sold Back to God magazine. One of those magazines ended up in my break room, and I opened it up because I saw in the front, Back to God. What is that? Interesting title. I never seen those words together like that. Back to Godhead. I never seen the word Godhead. I've seen God, Jesus, Muhammad, whatever. Never saw Godhead. What's that? So I opened it up, and there it was. Advertisement for the book. Easy Journey to Other Planets. Gotta have that book. Had enough faith to go knock on the door. And then the devotees were all sitting there in the Bhagavatam class, not paying attention to poor little me at the door. Finally, when Mataji jumped up, Mother Suksma Rupini, and ran to the door and greeted me with, how should you greet someone? Oh, you don't know? Hare Krishna, not just Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Enthusiasm, loving them, bringing them into the spirit of Krishna consciousness. So, for me, I didn't have much faith, but I had enough to read Prabhupada's books. And then I started associating with devotees, sadhu sangha. I started associating with devotees every day, hearing more about Prabhupada. In those days, in the temple, when we played music on the sound system, it was only Prabhupada. No other music, no other kirtans, just Prabhupada playing. So one day I asked this devotee, Kardama Muni, who was the head cook, because I'm a musician, so I said, who is that singing? He said, that's the world's greatest musician. I went, really? So my mind has always been Prabhupada's the greatest musician. So I listened to him in a deep, kind of musical way as well as a spiritual way. So all of that to say that I was developing my faith, but I didn't have strong faith. I had some faith. Then I had enough faith to start doing book distribution on a regular basis. That took a lot. That took a leap of faith. Because I'm from Atlanta. Now I have to go out into my hometown as a Hare Krishna, and someone's going to recognize me because I was a musician. I was known in the city. Someone's going to see me. And I was always looking and saying, oops. And some people saw me. Now let me show you how faith works. I'm shaky. I don't have a lot of faith. So one of my old friends, happened to be a female, she came to see me at the temple, and I'm a brahmachari. And she knocked on the brahmachari door. Where is Benny? My name is Benny. And I said, oops. So one Prabhu said, Dr. Ben, at that time, Dr. Ben, there's a lady at the door for you. I said, really? What's her name? Pat? What? So I went to the door, she said, I just wanted to make sure you're okay. Faith went up that I made the right decision. Because I was not sure, did I make the right decision? And Krishna kept showing me, you made the right decision, confirming it. Different people would come. Just recently, parking my van to go on Harinam, I'm crossing the street, and this guy walks across the street and goes, Benny Tillman, because he knew me. I used to work with you. We lived in this, oh, I recognize you. And he was just so happy to see me dressed as a devotee. Confirmation after 48 years that I made the right decision. It's incredible how faith grows incrementally. So Srila Prabhupada, having firm faith in him, is essential for making progress in this Krishna consciousness movement. And he challenged us in many different ways. His passing was a challenge. Can you keep this movement together after I depart? So he made a statement, the test of your love will be, once I've departed, you'll be tested in how well you can cooperate. Believe me, you all know this. Cooperation is one of the hardest things in the world to achieve. Whether it's business, politics, especially in politics, especially nowadays. Religion, whatever it is, it's so hard to get cooperation. But during Prabhupada's time, I don't know how we did it. We all came from different backgrounds, African American, white, Latino, whatever, men, women, whatever. But we somehow came together to achieve greatness. We were watching that movie this morning about Srila Prabhupada, and it was describing, the movement, how it grew. And then Prabhupada, I think he mentioned about having hundreds of temples at that time, during his time. But he also mentioned he had 40 rupees when he came. 40 rupees and some books. He had his 2 Bhagavatams, first and second part of the first canto. And that's all he had. And he said, I lived for 1 year selling those books. Pay attention. Prabhupada had no supporter. He had the Agarwal family that sponsored him, but not a financial support. So for 1 year, he was walking in New York selling his books. Total faith. That was showing us how to do it. Even though it's difficult, it also mentioned in that movie how many difficulties Prabhupada had. Of course, he had the heart attacks on the boat, no one to support him, no place to live properly. He was on it. And then he said, my tape recorder, my typewriter, everything was stolen. He's using that to serve Krishna. Just imagine, you have all this to serve Krishna, and someone steals it. Wow. So it's a big test. So the point is, he's showing us a haitukiya pratiyata. There's no impediment to devotional service. There's no motivation. There should not be any motivation for your personal, whatever in life. And no impediment. No hill too high to climb. You have to put it into perspective. Srila Prabhupada was 70 years old. I will be 70 next month. So I keep thinking, wow. Because sometimes I say, Prabhupada was an old man. I said, I guess I'm an old man now. He was 70, 69 when he got on the boat. Had Janmashtami on the boat. There was no Vyasa Puja because he had no disciples. It was like the next day Vyasa Puja, no, he had no disciples. So it was Janmashtami, he made some offering, he gave the captain and the people there, and he sang some kirtan. So, nothing. And then when he got off the boat, how old was Srila Prabhupada? 70. Because he had his birthday. He was 69 and then 70. Like I'm 69 now. The next month I'll be 70. So Prabhupada was 70 when he got off the boat. And people were thinking, how this old man will be able to do anything? And he mentioned this morning in the movie, he was frustrated about nothing happening when he was in America. And he would go to the boat, to the dock, wherever, and check the schedule. When is the boat going back to India? Thinking maybe I'll just go back. But he said, no, let me stay a little longer. It's interesting, when Srila Prabhupada was in Atlanta, he gave the lecture on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's Vyasa Puja. It's very interesting how he said this. He said, I'm going to the West, to America, very difficult, I don't know what will happen, but let me try anyway. And when he said, let me try, the whole temple room, 400 or 500 devotees exploded. I think the realization was, had he not tried, there would be no Richmond, Philadelphia, West Islands Lane. There would be no new temple building. It wouldn't be any of us. Had he not taken the risk. He took the risk of his age, took the risk of no support. Everything was a risk for him to start this Krishna consciousness movement. So he's teaching us by his example how to move this movement forward, how to build our own faith, how to become more and more Krishna conscious. So I would say that in our meditation on Srila Prabhupada on this day, which is the disappearance, again, we always like to keep things light, lively, joyous, because Krishna consciousness, Susukam Kartam Abhyam, is supposed to be joyfully performed. So how do you joyfully perform the disappearance of your spiritual master? It's very difficult. It's not so easy. So for us, it's a challenge. Because immediately we think about that day. We heard about all this. Immediately. And then, depending on where your heart is, it can practically immobilize you. I mean, it can make you so emotional that you can't do anything. Most devotees just like to sit and read about Prabhupada, read Lila Rita, chant extra rounds, But we have to have nice programs, we have to have festivals and all that. So, how do we balance all of that? So, back to Atlanta the night that I heard, or we heard, and we were sitting there, not knowing what to do. There was an international realization that happened, and I guarantee it was international, and I'll prove it in a second. Most devotees were thinking, what should we do? Have 24-hour kirtan? That's a normal response. Do this, do that, do this, do that. But then this international realization dawned upon all the devotees. Prabhupada loved book distribution. We knew that for a fact. When Prabhupada would see it, he said, when I see the bookstores, I get life. It gives me life. So we wanted to give Prabhupada life by, you would pray that Prabhupada would see your name in the bookstores. There is a devotee in Atlanta, my mentor, Srila Das. He was the first devotee to do more than 200 books in one day, big books. So he did that, and all the scores went to Prabhupada in the newsletter. And Prabhupada saw Charudeshna's score from Atlanta. You know what he wrote? It is simply wonderful that Charudeshna Das has done 225 big books in one day. Prabhupada recognized this devotee. So it was like we knew what he wanted. So that international realization was we should get up from here, pick up our lamentation, turn it into action, and do something that we know pleases Srila Prabhupada. See, there's certain times you're not even sure. Am I pleasing spiritual master? Is this the right thing to do? Has anyone been in that kind of condition where you don't know exactly what you should do? Bhagavad Gita actually confirms it. What is that? Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, text 34. Tadviti panipatena, hariprasena sevaya, upadeshanti te gana, ganinastatvarsha. So one should try to learn the truth by approaching the spiritual master in service unto him and inquire. So this, because the spiritual master can speak in because he's seen the truth. So he can remove that confusion for you. So that Prabhupada's example helped us understand how to remove that lamentation. It was true lamentation. Prabhupada's gone. You can't imagine how painful that was. It's difficult to even imagine. But it was difficult. Very difficult. But when that realization came, something happened in our lives. That year, for the December Marathon, was the biggest book distribution year in the history of the movement. Worldwide. Because everyone realized Prabhupada would want us to go and preach. That would please him. And not only please him, but it satisfied our hearts. We felt happy. By the end of the marathon, we were completely, it was a whole other mood in Krishna consciousness. We were ready to go forward in the coming years. Of course, in the preceding years, we've had many difficulties in this movement. But we're not going to talk about it here. There's so many, as in any religious movement. ISKCON was only, 10 or so, 12-year-old movement, contending with all the material distractions and all the things that we brought, the baggage we brought as people from the West. It was a new movement. We didn't have complete faith. All of that stuff was there. But somehow or other, through the storm, devotees have persevered, and this movement has come to where it is now. But we should never forget how we got to where we are now. It was built through preaching. Seriously, Prabhupada sustained himself through preaching. He said it. First year he had nothing except his books he brought from India, and he sold those, and he was able to eat something. This is one thing that whenever I think of it, practically I can't even speak because it makes me want to cry. He said, sometimes I'm feeling night starvation. What does that mean? It means he's hungry at night because he didn't have resources. And he's trying to push on. He didn't even have a movement to fall back on. No disciples, nothing. Some hippies were interested, whatever. And he's feeling night starvation. And he's willing to accept that so that we can sit here on this nice, wonderful floor and be with each other, chant Hare Krishna in a nice, comfortable environment. Beautiful altar. Beautiful altar. So many nice things that he didn't have. So the example he set for us was don't make excuses. Don't make excuses. I love what Prabhupada said about book distribution. He said in India, brahmacharis can go door to door knocking and ask for what they call it, bakshis or something, donation.
Viksha.
Huh?
Viksha.
Yeah, give some donation, give something. Even a Buddhist monk, you can go there, put something in his pocket. So brahmacharis can do it. That's accepted in India. Prabhupada said it's not acceptable in your country. And we know that from our experience. We used to go out begging, and people didn't like it. He said it's not acceptable. He said, therefore, I have created some scheme like selling book. The scheme. Prabhupada said, he used the word scheme. Therefore, I've created some scheme like selling books. So through that, you can use a really nice profile, you can talk to people, and you hold those books up with such pride. They're so beautiful. The covers. I remember selling books, you just open up and show the pictures. And people are like, wow, look at that. Show the cover. They're like amazed. Prabhupada was very proud of what had been produced through his books, and then the way that we would distribute it. So if we want to truly please Srila Prabhupada, number one, we have to learn how to cooperate more. And I want to give a nice example. Yesterday, our temple here, we cooperated nicely. We went down to Rittenhouse Square. How many devotees came? You know? Seemed like
25?
Huh?
20? 25?
Seems like 20 or 25 devotees came. Bishop Bell was there, I was there, we were all there. Dronacharya was there, Sita was there, and Jagannath Priya was there. So many devotees from different service areas of the temple cooperated to make that wonderful experience for the people at Rittenhouse Square. And I was watching how devotees were preaching, like Bhakti Shan and Sita and Drona and who? Trilochan was there. Everyone was there. And they were approaching people. And Sukadev's son, Adishesh. I asked Adishesh, come with me to distribute books. He said, no, I don't want to do it. I said, just stand with me and hold the book and give it to me. No, I don't want to do it. So then he sat down and did kirtan. And before I knew it, he was up. And he was behind that statue that was across from us. He was standing there. So he got so inspired, he figured out a way to distribute books. You know what he did? He told the people, I've been holding this book for 30 minutes, my hands are really cold. Can you take it from me? 2 books. He did. And he came in, he was so proud. And Bhakti Shan's daughters, at first they weren't doing it. Then all of a sudden I saw them approaching people, being rejected, little child. Being rejected, but trying again. That's the power. When you try to help others through preaching Krishna consciousness, you get the benefit in your own heart. It comes back to you. Whatever you give to Krishna consciousness, you get it back a millionfold. So I saw a level of cooperation yesterday that really inspired me. Just seeing the devotees working together right now. So it showed me the potential of what we can do as a community if we focus in a certain area. If we focus on what we don't like about each other, that's not pleasing to Prabhupada. You can be totally 100% correct that I am a complete fool. You can be 100% correct, but that's not going to help you. I know that about virtues, this, and that. It's not going to help you. But if you focus on what Prabhupada wanted, all of the problems that we have as individuals, they just disappear. It just folds into pleasing Srila Prabhupada. So we're trying our best here in this country with the help of our Vice President, Dronacharya Prabhu, and all the devotees. As you see, how beautiful, look at Prabhupada's Vyasa sign. How beautiful that is. I think Srila did the flowers.
Flowers, yeah.
And then Sita and yourself and a few devotees did the decorations here. And then for Diwali, all this nice food decoration, everything here, everyone's working together. So I'm saying it's such a potential. But what is it that we ultimately want to achieve? So those of you who may not be familiar with Prabhupada's 7 purposes of ISKCON, you need to look at those, study them to understand what he wanted. On the front end, he wanted to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to humanity at large. On the back end, that was number 1. Number 7, and to achieve all the other goals, holy place of pilgrimage, bring the devotees together, all the things he wanted, to print and distribute periodicals and books and other literatures. That's how he wanted to achieve the balance of everything else in this country, to do that. So I would say that if we together as a community, with the leadership of devotees like David Tarpenter, who's our Sankirtan leader, John Achari, who's our vice president, working very hard, if we all say, let's kind of go in the direction together, it's amazing what we can achieve in pleasing Srila Prabhupada. If we go too many separate directions, it's difficult. So we know he wanted that. We know he wanted kirtan. We know he wanted prasad distribution. So we're feeling the pain of the separation. We want to please Srila Prabhupada so we can ourselves feel complete inside. And we do that based on what Srila Prabhupada wanted. So I'm humbly requesting everyone to meditate on that. In the coming weeks, myself, Brahmacharya Prabhu, David Tarpenter Prabhu, and some other devotees, we're going to get together and think about how we can focus our energy for the next coming season. We call it Christmas marathon. That's ISKCON terminology. So we want to see how we can work together. Preaching. How we can preach more together. I know in California, my dear godbrother is Grace Vaishya Prabhu, who's the guru of Dana Tarpenter Prabhu and some other devotees. He always inspired the devotees, just do a little something. You don't have to, it's not like you have to be pressured to do a lot. Just do something toward preaching. And that's going to be our mood. Because we want to preach to the Prabhupada these coming weeks. So we're going to work very hard together. We can't do anything without your participation, your support, your engagement, your encouragement. In fact, when I first started book distribution, I was the person carrying the books to Charvadeshna and Naikatna and Swavas and Pragosh and Vaishasika. I was just a book carrier. Then one day I said, Charvadeshna Prabhu, can I try to distribute books? He said, what do you work in the kitchen? What are you talking about? I used to cook and bring prasad to the airport. I said, I want to try. Okay, go ahead and try. So within 5 minutes, I sold 7 books. He said, put him on the team. He's good. So that experience really lifted me up, getting into that flow of preaching Krishna consciousness. So as I said, we're working on that, and we'll present some things to you as we go forward. But David Tarpenter Prabhu wanted me to mention something. He's the Sankirtan leader here, and he's making a special arrangement in honor of Srila Prabhupada's Disappearance Day. And he's offering from the Sankirtan department a full set of Lilamritas. That's the biography, the official biography of Srila Prabhupada, 7 volumes. He's making that available for the price of $50 or a donation of $50. And anyone who gets a set, I believe you have the books outside, right?
Yes.
So anyone who gets a set will get a complimentary copy of Teachings of Lord Chaitanya.
Wow.
Which is first big book published by Srila Prabhupada in 1968. So that's I'm not going to use the word deal, because it's not a good deal. But it's a great blessing if you can do that. So he's going to make those available outside, and I think we have some other announcements regarding book distribution and the success of our yesterday program. Yesterday what we did, we had a nice invitation to this program today, and a little explanation about Srila Prabhupada in a little packet with 2 books, Beyond Birth and Death and Perfection in Krishna Consciousness.
Yes,
I believe those 2 little books, right? And we were just giving them out to people, and some people gave donations. It was really, really nice. So that's what we're going to discuss here. Being the topic of what I just want to start about the Sankirtan scores. You want to do that now? It's fun.
Sean probably will be doing that. Yeah.
Okay, real quick, does anyone have any question about Srila Prabhupada? Not only question, does anyone would like to glorify Srila Prabhupada? Just say a couple of words that you appreciate about Srila Prabhupada. Anyone? Just raise your hand. I'll send the microphone to you. Anyone? Good? Yes, thank you. Here we go. You just have to say what you feel Prabhupada is, what he means to you. We'll just take a few minutes. You can take your mask down and talk.
I'm really,
It's okay. Take it. How has Prabhupada inspired you?
he inspired me to be more, go more to Godhead, to be closer to him. Like, do more kirtan,
I was gonna say that. He's an excellent photographer.
Do more, just be closer to him, and really inspired me to just be with him only, be with Krishna.
And how old are you?
I'm 12.
Wow. Amazing.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jai.
Anyone else?
Srila Prabhupada ki.
I think without Srila Prabhupada, I would not be anyone in this material world. Because I remember when I first came to this country, I was not even 18. And the very first time I met devotees in Iowa. So it's all Srila Prabhupada's mercy that at the age of 17, I could have a college student. And my first exposure from Iowa was Chicago, downtown. So everybody knows what Chicago is. And instead of going to the path of drugs and alcohol, I went to the path of spiritual development. So without Srila Prabhupada, it was very difficult. At the age of 18, I took initiation also in Atlanta. So it was again. And I can't thank him enough. But where we are today, especially myself, and have been blessed with wonderful family, 2 sons, 1 wife. I know a lot of people have many wives, but I have 1 wife. But all
I put the
because
3
of
garland, 3 box
Srila Prabhupada.
for sponsoring.
So, thank you very much, Prabhupada, too, for you have given me the shelter today in this material world. I'm very thankful to you and to my spiritual masters, and many others. Thank you.
Haribol.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jonah, what does Prabhupada mean to you? I love to put people on the spot. That's not good. Because when you put them on the spot, it's spontaneous from your heart.
Yeah.
You had no time to prepare it. So.
Well, when you're lost, and you ever had that experience when you're lost, it's such a helpless feeling. And I was lost in life. I had no idea what to do, what the purpose was. I know there were a lot of expectations from my family that had placed on me. But was life simply just to accumulate a bunch of things, cars, houses, family, and then at the end, it's like you're building a sandcastle at the edge of the sea, and then the waves of time just come in and wipe it all down, and then there it goes. Is that what life was about? And I couldn't accept that. And no one could give me the answers. Nah, just keep going, just keep going, and just enjoy life, just enjoy. And, it wasn't by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada through his devotees that had the answers to life's greatest questions. What is life about? What is the purpose of life? He gave us the answers, and without him, I, as well as many of us, would be completely lost. So Srila Prabhupada, you are a savior. You saved us from our illusion. You've saved us from our ignorance. All glories to you, Srila Prabhupada.
All right. So I want to hear from at least one Mataji. Please, raise your hand. Any Mataji? Just one. Yes, right here. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you.
Whenever I listen to him, I feel that he was a very
Srila Prabhupada ki. We got 4 minutes left. We can get some more people.
One more. Yes, all the way in the back.
All right.
Hare Krishna. 1 second, he'll bring the microphone. Just 1 second.
You got a lot of wisdom and stuff, right?
I want to hear this nectar.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bo.
Hare Bo. Since we're speaking of Srila Prabhupada, I just have to share, for me the greatest gift is to give Krishna consciousness. So, as I am here now, sharing that gift with all of you, my wife, my child, it's such a wonderful feeling. And to be here speaking about Srila Prabhupada, I ask everybody, just think about the vibration and the rhythm when you hear Prabhupada chant.
Yes.
How powerful that cadence, that repetition, it touches you from the inside out. And then that same voice when you hear his class, that knowledge, that wisdom, but yet transcendental bliss coming out of his voice and his mouth, that nectar of Krishna consciousness. And last but not least, listen to his kirtan. And just watch his face.
Yes.
His eyes are closed and he's singing, as you so poignantly pointed out, I think the most wonderful musician. But in that moment, just look at his face, and there is true bliss. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai! That was a perfect ending to this program. Perfect. Thank you. Wonderful. You want to do Pushpanjali first or the announcements? Real quick.
We're going to do this. Want to do the Sankirtan announcement?
Yeah, let's do the first. No. I think Baba Shah's.
Yeah. Stand on the side, just on the back side of the deities.
Hare Krishna devotees. For the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, the Philadelphia Sankirtan scores for last week are as follows. 240 books.
Haribo!
1 Srimad Bhagavatam set. 4 Bhagavad Gitas. 1 Krishna book. 1 Science of Self-Realization. 1 Journey of Self-Discovery. And 150 small books distributed yesterday in Rittenhouse Square.
Srila Prabhupada ki. Introduce the Pushpanjali. Who's doing the Pushpanjali? Krishna, get up.
We can actually do it simple, because I need the book in order to do it.
Do you want to? Do you want to do it? Yeah,
Sure.
Oh,
But I need
so,
the book so I can see the prayers.
okay. I don't know if it's in
Where are the flowers?
one. The flowers are over here.
You're
So,
playing, I'll get mine.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Baba Shah, for the Sankirtan update. The whole sport is very encouraging, and hopefully we can continue this, week in and week out. Bring some transcendental knowledge to this world that definitely needs it. So right now we're going to do a Pushpanjali. It's a flower offering to Srila Prabhupada. We'll all get a chance to offer flower petals. So with a big basket here, flower petals we have to pass out. So we want everybody to stand up. We're going to divide it, I think, about men and women. If we can have the men, what we'll do is we'll have the men stand on this back area. The women can go between Srila Prabhupada and the altar. We'll pass them out. Balabaja, from Spirit's Balabaja Prabhu will be a chance.
I'm trying to get him
Okay.
while they're passing the flowers.
So we just need a minute to pass out the flowers, and we'll repeat the prayers, and we'll repeat it as well.
See if he pops it. Do you have a Bhagavad Gita? Because the prayers are going to be very. So everybody's going to get flowers. So we'll repeat after me. Hare Krishna. Ready?
Wash your hands, everybody.
10 seconds.
Get ready. Come and make sure you get it back.
এটা পর এরকম মন্ত্রটা বল লিপিট প্লিজ এই পাশে রাখো
जय श्रीला प्रभुपाद की श्रीला प्रभुपाद की
Deshatarine Nama Bhakti Siddhanta
Saraswati
Saraswati
Namane Namo Gaura Kishoraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Pradambha Sambodhe Padam Pujaya Te Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidananda Namane Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Ayate Gaura Avirbhava Bhumistam Nirdishta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vancha Kalpa Taru Vyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Trishe Namaha Panchatattva Atmakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratopango Mama Manda Matergati Matsarvasva Padam Pojo Shri Radha Madana Mohano Divya Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadha Srimad Ratnagara Singhasana Stone Shri Radha Govinda Devo Krishnaliti Sevyamano Swarami Sriman Rasa Rasarambhi Vamshivat Tata Stita Karshan Venu Svanayar Gopi Gopinata Shristuna Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Deshatarine.
Esha Pushpanjali. Parki. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Saraswate Devi Gauravani. Hold it, don't throw.
Esha Pushpanjali. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Vishnupadaya
Krishna Pristhaya
Krishna Krishnaya
Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine
Nirvishesha
Shunyavadi
Paschatya Deshatarine Esha Pushpanjali Jai. I won't forget. I think I'm doing too much. Sukra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, we have our seat now. We also have the opportunity to offer candles to the Damodar. This is chanting the Damodar Astika prayers. Please line up on the right side to offer the candles.
Sachidanandrupam Lasakundalam Gokule Vrajamanam Namamishwaram Sachidanandrupam Lasakundalam Gokule Vrajamanam
Namamishwaram Sharavio Lukala Davamana भगवान की जय जय राधा दामोदर भगवान की गौर प्रेमानंदे।